Welcome. I'm Brentwood Mayor Ray Little. What a year it's been. 2020 is definitely one we will remember and talk about for years to come. Tonight we celebrate the holiday season. We may be celebrating in different ways, but the reason for the season remains. Tonight, we want you to celebrate the season with us.
Hello, I'm Ken Travis, Vice Mayor of Brentwood, Tennessee. We have such a special community here, and Christmas time is even more special. My family and I really enjoy Christmas. We enjoy the lighting of the Christmas tree. It's so special to so many people in Brentwood. Many things at Christmas bring great memories back to us. We love driving down Franklin Road and looking at the Turner property. Mr. Turner calls that nativity scene a Christmas card to the community. That pavilion was destroyed in 2011. Mr. Turner rebuilt that and put the nativity scene up there so we could all enjoy. Our family likes to go across the street to Fountainhead and Woodway and ride around and see all the wonderful, wonderful lights. Enjoy Brentwood. Merry Christmas to all.
Hi, I'm Susanna McMillan, Brentwood City Commissioner, and I wanted to tell you about a tradition our family has had. Growing up as far back as I can remember, my brother and I were allowed to open one present on Christmas Eve. I suspect it has something to do with we pestered my parents for weeks leading up to Christmas, and they finally gave in and said we could open one present on Christmas Eve. Ever since then, we have, even as young adults and before we had our own families. Once we had families and our kids found out about the one present on Christmas Eve, they wanted to continue the tradition. So while this year looks a little different for a lot of people, and you might not get to do the traditions you've always wanted to do, maybe this is the year to start a new family tradition for years to come. From the city of Brentwood and from my family to yours, I wish you the merriest of Christmases.
I'm Kathy Dilly-Smith, President of the Friends of the Brentwood Library. Every year, through our book sales, the Friends with our 300 members raise almost $100,000 to fund programming, services, technology, and equipment at our amazing library. During our 44-year history, we have donated $1.4 million. If you love the library, I invite you to join us. You can learn more about our organization on the library's website, as well as our Facebook and Instagram. Tonight, it looks a little different this year, but we are continuing our long history of partnering with the City of Brentwood to sponsor the festive entertainment for the tree lighting. I now present Ravenwood High School's Choir Ensemble.
I'm Nelson Andrews, one of the Brentwood City Commissioners, and I wanted to talk about one of my favorite Christmas memories. So when I started thinking about doing this, I was thinking about maybe the Christmas tree out front of the house with a few too many lights, or maybe the live Christmas tree we thought about doing one year that turned out to be about 1,000 pounds by the time it came with the root ball and all. But keeping with the tree theme, the one I kept coming back to was the year that we decided to go out and cut our own Christmas tree. So this was the year that Trish and I had moved into the house we're in now, and it was our first house with a really big high ceiling in the living room. We thought, wouldn't it be fun to just go out to the tree farm, Griswold family style, and cut our own tree, kids and all. So we got on out there, and we're in a big forest, we're looking at these trees, and when you're out there, they don't seem that big. You know, our first clue should have been when we were putting it on top of the car, and you could see the bottom of the trunk out in front of the hood, and the top hanging way over the back. But we just happily, used a crew of guys, tied it on, drove home, and the first clue there was realizing that until we got the Morris family to come over from next door, we did not have enough people to get this thing inside the house. Then we ended up having to cut about 4 feet off the bottom of it just to get it inside. And once we got it in there, even with the 4 feet we left in the front yard, it was still, to this day, the biggest Christmas tree we have ever had by a lot. So I have some fabulous pictures, and that was a one-off. We are not doing the ginormous tree quite to that level again. It was a great memory, and I want to wish everybody in Brentwood a very Merry Christmas.
Hey everyone, Merry Christmas to Brentwood. I want you to know I'm Regina Smithson. I've served on the Brentwood City Commission for 28 years, and I love Brentwood. And more than that, maybe I love my family. I have 3 children who live right here in Brentwood, and their families, they're all in the Brentwood schools. I have 11 grandkids and 1 great-grandkid, a child. His name is Alex, for all of y'all who want to know. One of the things that I love is that I'm one of 12 kids, and I have 12 grandkids. And family is everything to me. We have huge Christmases. And one of the things that we made a tradition of was to have the very same meal every Christmas. I've been married to John for 54 years, and we've had the very same meal every year. Each one of my kids have a favorite dish, and one of them is the cinnamon apples that I make. I just want you to know it's cinnamon apples with marshmallows, and all of them have their favorite dish. But the main thing about Christmas, it's about family and friends and loved ones. So happy New Year and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Well, good evening, boys and girls. It's so good to be with you this evening. It's always a joy to be back in Brentwood. And the only thing wrong is that we can't all be together here tonight. But you know what? We're going to make the best of it. We're going to have some fun. And we're going to read. Well, let's see. What should we read? I'll tell you what, we'll start with the book about my train. I think that would be the best thing. The Polar Express. This is our book. This is a picture of our train, the Polar Express. And it was my train. I didn't own it, but I was the conductor on the Polar Express. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound. A sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, a friend had told me, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor, that was me, stood at the door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest. Then he looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Well, where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was the answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand, and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as rich and thick as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon, there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "They're gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Well, who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." "Look!" shouted the children, "the elves!" Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl, so crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped, and the conductor went outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew I could have any gift I could imagine. But the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood, holding the bell high above him, and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us and disappeared into the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. "Well, let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch, and we started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas," he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it, and inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell. But as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe.
One of my favorite memories of childhood in Brentwood and Christmas was coming to the family farm, Locust Hills Dairy, here just off Edmondson Pike. And we would actually walk out into the woods, find us a good cedar tree. The botanist would tell you in Tennessee it's actually a juniper, and cutting it down. And that was our Christmas tree. The cedar tree, as you can tell, is not exactly like what you see at your Christmas tree lot nowadays. And so it did take a lot of decoration, lots of silver tinsel and lights, and I remember we strung popcorn and we did silver bows around it and of course glass ornaments and all the things. They were a little bit big and bulky and they shed, so they were a little more cleanup, a little more trouble getting them in and out of the houses. But those are unique memories I have of childhood Christmas in Brentwood.
Hi, I'm Ann Dunn, Brentwood City Commissioner. I'm so glad you're joining us for this Christmas tree lighting. The first one in Brentwood was held in the early 1970s. It was at the Brentwood House Shopping Center, which we all know is where Baskin-Robbins is. It was on land owned by Albert Noble, and the tree was one he had planted when he first acquired the property. The mayor of Brentwood then was John Sloan Jr. He presided over the ceremony, and they were lucky enough to have country music star Eddie Arnold read the first Christmas story. The Brentwood Academy Choir sang carols, and by all accounts it was a great evening even though it was pouring down rain. Brentwood, though, had the Christmas spirit, and 300 residents showed up, which was 10% of our population then, to keep that spirit going. And that's what we're doing today. This year may be a little different, but we still have the Christmas spirit in Brentwood. We have the love for each other in our hearts. Children will be hanging stockings, and Santa is still coming. So Merry Christmas, Brentwood. Happy New Year, stay safe, and have a wonderful holiday.
Hi, I'm Mark Gorman, one of your city commissioners, and this is Ellie. Ellie, can you tell them how old you are? 3, that's right, yay! So we're here to wish you a very Merry Christmas, kick off the countdown for the lighting of the Christmas tree at the library, as well as just share a quick Christmas story and pastime. So the story and pastime is when my kids were little. They would be so excited on the night before Christmas. They would just be completely fit to be tied and wouldn't want to go to sleep. They were so excited for Santa to come. They're also so excited for the birth of Jesus, our Savior. So kids would finally go to sleep. We would get everything all squared away and we would go to sleep. And we would wake up the next morning, Santa will have come, and the cookies were eaten and the presents were all under the tree. We'd of course have to get our coffee because it was so early and the kids were so excited. But that's what Christmas is about. It's about the kids. It's also about the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. So with that, we'll jump right into the countdown of the lighting of the tree. Are you ready, Ellie? Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Merry